Welcome back to the Dempster Mortuary. With the new Slender film coming out from Sony, I actually don't know the release date offhand, but I thought it would be a really good time to talk about something that I've always had an interest in, and I think you guys will enjoy. I want to talk about what made Slenderman so successful and so popular. So we all know who Slender Man is if you're in the horror community. People who don't know horror, people who aren't actively involved in the horror community know who Slender Man is because he's huge. But where did Slender Man come from originally? So it was a contest that people were entering in, and it was a Photoshop contest on Something Awful where you would basically make paranormal images. And Erik Knudsen posted, as Victor Surge was what he went by, he posted two black and white photographs of children with this figure in the background. So this figure was Slender Man, and he had left some text that went along with each of the photos to make it a little more believable, and it stated that the children went missing, and I'll read to you exactly what the text said. I've got my notes here. So the first photograph said, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." The second photo said, "One of the two recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished, and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence." Now, along with each text, there was subtext. So the first one had 1983 photographer unknown, presumed dead. The second one had 1986 photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986. The images soon went viral. People were seeing these pictures everywhere, and people thought they were real because not everyone knew that it was part of a photo competition. So this was all over the internet. You can still find the pictures. I've seen them many times. I'm sure you guys have as well. You may not know that you've seen them, but when you see the images, you'll think, oh yeah, okay, so I have seen those before. So eventually it was turned into a video series, and this was posted on the Something Awful forum by a user named Cigars. I don't really know what that is supposed to mean. Maybe just like cigars. I don't know. But he made a YouTube series called Marble Hornets. We all know what that is. Now, regrettably, I have yet to watch Marble Hornets. I have not seen it yet. However, I do plan on watching it within the next few days. I really want to start this. I have a lot of interest in it. And this went, everywhere. Everyone saw Marble Hornets. It has millions of views. And it was just very short, 5-minute and sometimes shorter entries. And again, I haven't seen it, so I can't really go into detail on what Marble Hornets is. All I know is that it involves Slenderman, but he goes by the Operator, I believe. And this video series was huge because people really thought it was real, because it's believable, apparently. Yeah, again, I can't talk from personal experience, but Marble Hornets was giant, and people were watching it everywhere in the horror community and outside of the horror community. So that really gave this character some traction. So in 2012, there was a video game created called Slender The 8 Pages. Now, if you've been watching YouTube for, if you were watching YouTube in 2012, you know what Slender The 8 Pages is. You've probably played it, as many people did. I played it when I was younger. It was huge, and PewDiePie, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe he was the first person to actually let's play it. In just 2 months, the game got to 2 million downloads. That's amazing. For a little indie game developed by one guy, 2 million downloads in 2 months is ridiculous, and it was huge on YouTube. Everyone was playing it. Anyone who made videos was recording it and putting it online, and with the reaction, that was the start of a lot of face cams because people wanted to have their reactions shown. So Slender the 8 Pages was huge for horror. We'd never seen a game like that. We'd never had something, and we see things like that all the time now, and that all came from Slender the 8 Pages. Obviously, there are aspects from previous horror genre entries, but we never had any games that were like Slender the 8 Pages at that point, so it was groundbreaking, and it was terrifying. It scared the shit out of a lot of people. Me included. I was terrified when I played that game when I was younger. Oh my god. Every time I heard the footsteps, I quit the game. I swear to God, every time I would play it, I would turn it off when I heard that. I couldn't do it. And then in 2015, Slender The Arrival came out, which was a sequel to Slender The Eight Pages. And I don't think it had quite the same impact because between 2012 and 2015, we'd seen lots of games like that. But Slender The Arrival is definitely a fantastic horror game. I love it. It was different because you had to pay for it. Slender the Eight Pages was free. Slender the Arrival was a paid game, and it was a lot more full-fledged. It was picked up by a studio, so it wasn't just one guy developing it. But it's a really great game. If you haven't played Slender the Arrival, I would highly recommend checking it out. Would I still recommend checking out the Eight Pages? Yeah, it's short. You know, you're not going to invest a whole lot of time into Slender the Eight Pages, but you will want to play through all of Slender the Arrival. My personal favorite section in all of Slender the Arrival was the farm. I love farm locations for horror, and that was such a creepy sequence in the game. Oh my god. I loved it. It was so good. So now that we know where Slenderman came from and how he got to be so big, what made Slenderman so successful? It started out with the fact that many people believed that the images put in by Erik Knudsen were real. So we as humans were always looking for weird, creepy, obscure, eerie stuff and thinking that those photos were real and people believing that these children really did go missing and the photographers really were missing. And seeing these images, and they are quite believable images. They do look very good. It was something that a lot of people truly believed. So it scared a lot of people, so it went huge. Any time that there's any sort of proof of something paranormal, it takes off. It just blasts off. And, you know, that is what Slender did when those images came out on the Something Awful forum. They circulated the entire internet, and, you know, they're still there. If you look up Slenderman, I guarantee that those images will come up very high up in Google Images. He was always very, again, obscure and weird. It was just in the background, kind of out of focus. So it filled a part of horror that wasn't really full at that point in time. We had weird things, but we were more in the realm of ghost movies at that point. You know, things like Paranormal Activity. We had some slashers, so like a lot of remakes were coming out at this time. When this first came out, like 2009, we had the Friday the 13th remake and the Halloween 2 and My Bloody Valentine. We had lots of slasher stuff at that point. So this was something that was kind of not being done as much, was the weird, creepy stuff. So when that came out, it filled a part of horror that was empty at the time. Another reason that Slenderman is so big is that he's unique. He was very interesting, and we hadn't seen anything like this. It's a very simple design. It's a tuxedo. It's a tall, slim figure with no face. And, you know, it's so unsettling to look at that. And, you know, he had tentacles and all. We had the images of him with tentacles. And he just looked so off-putting, and there was something so wrong about Slenderman that everyone loved, and I love it. I still think it looks awesome. It's one of the creepy. Can you imagine walking through the woods and seeing that? I did you ever wish that some of these things were real? Again, it goes back to why Slender was so big, was because we want that kind of thing to be real. We want to believe that there's something else, and the fact that there was this creepy thing that was kind of believable was big. It was very unlike anything we'd seen before. And that's what gets successful, is new, something fresh. That's what's good. You want fresh. We don't want to keep seeing the same thing over and over again. We want new things. And that's what Slenderman was. He was new. He was unique. So that's one of the big reasons that Slender was so big. There were a lot of fake videos online where people would make it seem like they were capturing Slenderman on footage, and a lot of them were cool and some of them were believable. So we had a lot of footage online of this thing, so people were even more convinced now that, oh my god, this is real. Slenderman exists. I believe it. So we were all so excited because we were seeing this thing, and it was really interesting too. I remember the one that really sticks in my head, and I don't think I could find it now, but the one that sticks in my head is, I think he's out in a field, and there was a building that he went in, and he turned around, and it was like there, and he runs out the field, and he can kind of like see it in the distance, and it was really creepy. It was cool. And that's the main one that I remember. But there were a lot of videos where people claimed that they had caught Slenderman on footage. It was all fake because Slenderman's not real. It's not based. There were some people who tried to link it back to like old ancient text, but it was very far-fetched. Really, Slenderman is a creepypasta, so he's not an actual entity based in much fact. But it's still really interesting to think about. So it wasn't all roses and daisies when Slenderman got big. There were cases where people really did believe in it, and it kind of drove them crazy. And probably the most notable case of something horrible happening as a result of Slenderman is still talked about today and is a recurring subject now because the family who was involved in this is now going after Sony, saying that they shouldn't be making a movie about Slenderman because of this happening. So if you don't know what this is a messed up story, so if you don't want to hear anything, you're on a horror channel, you're going to hear some messed up stuff. So what had happened, essentially, there were these two girls, young girls, who believed that Slenderman was real, and they thought that he lived in the woods near their house. So as a sacrifice to Slenderman, they brought one of their classmates out, just kind of lured them out, tricked her a little bit, and they stabbed her many times as a sacrifice to Slenderman. I think it was something around 20 times they stabbed her. And that's just horrible. This young girl was almost killed. She survived, thankfully. But these two girls, I believe, were charged as... they didn't view them as kids. They charged them as adults, I think. Don't quote me on that. Not all of this information is 100% accurate. I'm just giving you what I've found. But that was one of the big things that happened, and that caused a lot of doubt. Should we really still be doing Slender stuff? Yeah, we totally should keep doing Slender stuff, because that's not because of Slenderman. Let's make that very clear. That was because of two girls who were not right in the head. That was not because of Slenderman. So we can't blame the story for that. That was them completely. There's nothing in the story that says, hey, take your classmate and sacrifice her. Slender loves kids, but they could have I'm not going to go there, actually. I'll just leave it alone. I'll leave it to your imagination. So with all that out of the way, you now know why Slenderman is so big and the history behind him. So let's talk about the movie that Sony is working on. I'll show you a clip from the trailer.
Where is my daughter? People don't just disappear.
He gets in your head. Like a virus.
So it does look like they're trying to make it a psychological horror movie, which is how Slenderman movies should be. It should be very psychological and weird, and I don't know how I feel about this movie. It's Sony, and Sony films, they're not generally speaking very good. So I don't know. I'm not nearly as excited for this as I am for Hereditary. I'd like to do a video talking about Hereditary, but yeah, this is I don't know. It looks like it could be interesting. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it because I haven't done a lot of reading. I've seen the trailer a couple times. I haven't done a lot of analysis on it, but it does look like it could be an interesting horror movie. We haven't really gotten a big Slender film yet. We've gotten many indie ones, and there was the Always Watching a Marble Hornets story. That one, I didn't see it, but it didn't get received very well. I'd like to see a good Slender movie. I really want a really good Slenderman movie because Slenderman is so creepy and it could be so good. And I hope Sony does a good job with it. Again, I'm very hopeful, but you never know. So I don't have much to say about the movie. It's not really on my radar too much, but I will definitely go see it. But Hereditary is more what I'm excited for. I'll have a video talking about Hereditary. All right, well, that's going to be it for this video. I want to thank you guys for tuning into the Dempster Mortuary again. I don't normally want to talk about this on this channel. I just want to focus this on having fun and doing horror stuff, but I need to mention that the reception that I'm getting on this channel is insane. I've been doing my other channel for 4 years, and this channel already, and I started uploading maybe 2.5 weeks ago. This channel already has a tenth of the subscribers that my other channel has, and my videos on here get way more views. Way more people watch them. So thank you for everyone who's tuned into this episode of the Dempster Mortuary. I thank you so much. And here's another interesting tidbit. My last video that I did on Halloween has more watch time than all of my videos combined for the entire month on my other channel. Yeah, that's mind-blowing. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Dempster Mortuary. I'll see you all very soon. Stay spooky.